Take the leap. Wear the bikini.
This meeting of the Council of Dads will come to order. I am Council Chair Andy Cole, joined by my co-council chair, Cole Osborne. Hello, Cole. Good evening to you, and how was your week?
Good evening to you as well, Andy. I had a very, very pleasant week. It's always a nice week when council airs, and
Yes.
and so this was especially nice.
It was good, and this was, I mean, we'll get into it, but this was a big one for me. I have a ton to talk about, a ton of notes. It felt like a million things happened. There is so much to do, and I'm happy because with all of the heavy lifting of this week's episode, we are joined by another guest who is going to help us do that heavy lifting. A writer-performer from Toronto. She now lives in LA, one of the more dedicated parents to have never had a child. It's Alana Johnston. Hi, Alana.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for having me. Ladies, get ready for me because I'm about to bring a woman's voice to this podcast.
I'm so happy to have that because it has felt a little bit like what they call a man party, which means a party that's mostly men. And there's only really one kind of perspective that can come from that. So it'll be good to have, a little bit coming in from the other side. I'm going to plug, I know I'll forget to do this later, so I'm going to plug it now. Alana's Instagram, the only Alana Johnston, and on Twitter, Alana_Johnston, where people can find more of your stuff. Have you done much posting about Council of Dads on your social media, or only a little bit?
I was waiting for the podcast to kind of be the world's introduction to me as I introduce myself into Council of Dads. Oh. So this is actually my coming out party.
Well, guys, should we both should we all rather just jump right in here?
Hey, they did, didn't they?
Yeah, certainly this week. All right, we will jump in to this week's episode of Council of Dads, episode 6, Heart Medicine. And indeed, this is an episode about the heart in many ways. I felt heartbreak. I felt heart warmed. I felt heart sad a lot of the episode too. What about you?
I'm going to say this. It seems like the episode picked up right where we left off. Terrified.
I noticed that too, Alana. It was the exact same scene was happening as the episode before. And I wasn't really ready for that. I'm not used to that. Usually when a new episode happens, there's a new scene.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think we all know the saying, double the price, twice as nice. But in this case, it was twice as scary to see it again.
Absolutely. The way I consume this show is when every new episode is out, I watch every previous episode leading up to that so that I haven't missed a thing. I really like to be fresh on everything that's happened. So for me, there was the shock of seeing Charlotte collapse to the ground and Robin and Ollie administering CPR and the entire rest of the family abandoning them to go inside the house. And the same thing happening again just a moment later when I queued up this episode. It was that was some of the heart sadness that I talked about, and we pick up from there, and we go over to the hospital where Charlotte is being taken care of. Things are a little less grim here. We have a little bit of Robin narration, guys. The first Robin episode of the season. That was nice to hear.
I mean, it's like I wrote in my notes. Buckle up. It's going to be an emotional ride.
Was it ever? Some of my heart sadness went away because I realized that there was the potential for Charlotte to live. Right. At the end of the last episode, I thought she had perished. So a bit of my sadness was abating, seeing that there was maybe a chance for her to pull through.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think something I appreciate in general in television, gentlemen, back me up on this. I'd like the clarification as to whether someone is alive or dead. So in this episode, they let us know, who knows temporarily, that she is alive. And that I needed cleared up right away.
So with the relief of Charlotte potentially being able to continue to live, your heart's thrown for another curve right away where she kind of relapses after a fight with Tess. It's very, very scary. You're very concerned because you're thinking maybe death has grabbed her once again. Then we go to credits, and during the credits, I see Tom Everett Scott is going to be in the episode.
I saw that, yeah.
And like you guys are talking about, I want to know if someone's alive or dead.
Yeah.
And so if Scott's dead, what's Tom Everett Scott doing here?
I can't think of another show that just by listing an actor's name has made me literally wrap the blanket that I had draped over me around my face, and I screamed into it, what is happening?
I mean, I looked at that name and I had one thought, not this again. I'm struggling to get over the loss of a man, hey, I just met. Yeah. And I finally am able to move on and see the beauty of these other family members.
Yes.
And now you're telling me he's back?
Yeah.
Come on now, don't toy with me like that.
I don't want to lose him again.
It's a lot. I've never had a husband. I've never had kids, and I'm terrified to lose both.
So we're right into the episode now. We start, though, with the momentum of the episode, stranded on the side of the road with Lullys car. She's having car troubles, and another, I think it's a big truck, rolls up behind her to help, and it is Anthony picking up Lully because she is on a mission this episode.
Gentlemen, there's 7 days in the week, and there's not one of them that Anthony can't save, and that's the end of that.
You're right. Her car just seems to be giving her a lot of problems.
Kind of like her house. Sound familiar?
That's a great point. Yeah, she. You know what? And she's going to fix up that car, and it's going to change the whole neighborhood. So Anthony is helping Lully off on this mission that kind of started last episode, where she wants to reconnect with the family that this goes back even further in the season. That had briefly adopted her when Scott was trying to work through his problems with sobriety and said he wasn't ready to have a child. This family had her for a little bit, and then Scott and Anthony actually went to court and ended up getting Lully back. But Lully's story this season is really trying to figure out who she is. Who do you want to be? And so she feels that connecting with this somewhat very short-lived adopted family is going to help her get there.
But is it going to be an easy road? I don't think so, my friend.
No.
Because she is not greeted well by all those family members.
As soon as Anthony takes Lully on the road, we shoot back over to the hospital where Robin and Ollie are two stressed out doctors kind of keeping their eye on Charlotte, who is doing a little better, I think, after her mild heart attack that's going on. But Robin and Ollie really are kind of grilling the doctors to find out what their plan is.
I'll tell you this. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a mom. But I know a doctor mom when I see one. And this is it.
The doctor said something. It absolutely chilled me to the bone.
We operate today. Preserving her heart function is my main priority. And with the rate of atrial enlargement, frankly, I worry about sudden cardiac arrest.
Chilling. My heart almost had a cardiac arrest.
Yeah, call me Charlotte because my heart's broken, you know?
So after this, we are back over with Anthony dropping Lully off at this family's place.
You probably guessed I'm Will, and I'm a hugger.
And Lully's courage seems to have worn down a bit, and Anthony, it might not just be a ride that he gave her. He might have to guide her along this whole journey of this episode.
I think we can all agree he's given her more than a ride. He's given her life, gentlemen.
Yes, and courage.
However, I think it is with some trepidation that Anthony finds himself in that living room.
He seems uneasy. There's
the looming secret always, right? With Anthony?
Yes.
There's hanging over his head like the sword of Damocles. It's not a secret to the viewer. It's just a secret to Lully, but Anthony is Lully's father.
The man's a chef, all right? He knows all about secret recipes. But this, my friend, is just a secret recipe for disaster. And guess what? This stove's about to burst in his face.
I don't like to make analogies, but I think what would help Chef Anthony is a heaping tablespoon of the truth. I think that a 25-year-old woman could just hear the truth and it would stop being this giant elephant in the room that quite honestly makes me feel uncomfortable almost every week.
Well, we know we're going there, right? Like, this secret will not be buried forever. It can't be.
Andy, we're not going there. We're there. We are there.
Yeah.
But is he?
No, he's not ready.
So. Not ready.
And you know, you're right. We saw it last week with his inability to declare his love for Margot. Or, you know, he wasn't in love, but he also couldn't say he wasn't, right? He wouldn't say he loved her. He wouldn't say he didn't love her. Anthony is a walled off man. He may as well have put a bunch of breadcrumbs around himself and fried himself in a pan for the thick crust that is around his heart.
And that's terrifying.
So next we jump to a scene. It's sort of a staple of the show. It's an emotional scene. It pulls at your heartstrings. But at the same time, it's very cute. It's quirky. It's funny. We have Dr. Oliver. He's trying to coax his daughter Tess out of a totally empty ladies' room. And I wanted to quote directly from Dr. Oliver if I could.
Oh, please.
Because it really stood out for me. Charlotte's heart needs room to grow, just like Tess and Charlotte's friendship needs room to grow.
Char's heart is failing because it needs to expand, and there's no room. Everything needs room to grow, baby. Even best friends.
And then, do you know what Tess's response to that is?
Want to hear my metaphorical response?
Sure.
She flushes the toilet.
Yeah, and it says, here's what I think of your advice, and flushes it. Yeah.
I think we can all agree a flush that means an F-U-C blank that.
Yeah, flush you and flush your advice, Dad. Yeah.
So the next scene we have, and let me just say this, did I have it or was it a gift given to me? Because it's a reality check that a lot of us are going to have to face one day. News for you, my friends. People get surgery. And I quote, "Get ready, because this is happening whether you're ready or not." Spoken by Charlotte's doctor to Charlotte's mother, a.k.a. Dr. Ma. And you know what this made me think of, gentlemen? One strong woman telling another strong woman to get ready about the strong daughter. It reminded me of a hit Canadian TV show, Ready or Not. Because that was also a show about people not being ready to change.
Either way, sometimes they were ready, though.
Well, I mean, with hit characters like Busy and Amanda, when you got your best friend right by your side, of course
absolutely.
You're going to be a little ready.
Do you guys remember when they were ready to sleep in a department store?
I'd rather not. Excuse me.
Look at my hat.
Mercy me.
Yeah, I could do with a better face.
And then, ready or not for the viewer, we are right there with Charlotte as she's being put under for surgery. I mean, I've gone under the knife a few times in my life, and I recognize the scene. I identified it with immediately as the gas mask is going on, and they tell you to count down. Now, they told me from 100, and I got somewhere into the 80s. They tell Charlotte 10, and she is gone by number 4, counting down. And I don't know about you guys, but I figure she shuts her eyes and we're going to be shuttled off to another scene in the show. But interestingly, we follow Charlotte as she closes her eyes and goes to sleep or perhaps a whole other place.
That's right. And now this is the very reason why I won't use knockout gas. And I have had multiple, maybe dozens of surgeries, but I choose to feel every cut because I am deathly afraid of the psychotropic effects of the drugs they pump into you. Charlotte hallucinates this vision of Scott.
Are you really here?
Scott and Charlotte are catching up, and she's sort of saying, this happened, and Scott's kind of nodding along. But when Charlotte mentions that
Theo got caught drinking, and JJ is good and Hope's almost walking.
Wait.
Theo drinking? Where was the council when this was happening?
They're there. They're helping.
I got to say, I did really appreciate, the turn there where it kind of took the sheen off the whole visit because, I think it's a pretty dangerous message to kids here that huff a bit of the funny stuff and you can talk to your dead old dad there. So I kind of liked that it took that little bit of a negative angle and they sort of started to bicker and there was a little because it shouldn't be all perfect, right?
No.
Guys, dads are real. Okay. And the sooner people can accept that, the sooner we're going to be able to get along with them. Yes, he's dead, but he's still getting on your nerves, for God's sake.
Yes. And I think, Alana, you can probably uniquely speak to this because a big crux of the disagreement between Scott and Charlotte has to do with wearing a bikini and that Scott doesn't really know Charlotte. And did you have any examples in your life regarding just your dad not really knowing you?
Let me just start by saying I'm a woman, but I was once a girl. Okay.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know, It's the same thing. The experience I had with my dad was very similar to the experience Charlotte is having with hers. The dads are coming in, they have the rules, they have the regulations, but what I didn't know at that time was they had a reason. Okay. Every time my dad said, don't wear a bikini, he was saying, I love you and you need to love you. And I thought to myself, but what's that got to do with a bit of a midriff? Right. And I can't answer that because I'm not a dad, nor a counsel. I understood and I felt for her frustration, but I got excited for the knowledge she was going to gain later in life when she could interpret what that conversation meant. He's not a dad. He's a dude. And he's one who's telling you that you don't need to put yourself out there in that way because you have arrived.
Wow.
It must be wonderful for you. Like your father is still around?
And popping off, I don't mind saying.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay.
He's on all those texts.
I didn't want to be presumptuous, but you have the benefit that you don't have to get extremely high to still communicate with your father. But that's something that you have to imagine Charlotte's going to have to just keep doing in her life when she needs this level of guidance.
A drug problem is well on its way, my friends, and let's just say it's not making any stops.
Then we jump ahead to another pretty fun, fast scene with a lot of information coming at us. It's Dr. Ollie and Robin, and they're talking very quickly. They're stressed out. They're in the hospital, and we find out that Dr. Ollie and his husband Peter are contemplating adopting another child, which is obviously very, very exciting. Would mean another character in the fray and maybe more great baby scenes. And then this big bomb happens where it's divulged that Charlotte is Robin's favorite child.
Let's just say, I know JJ's not in the scene, but, or the unnamed baby, but, and of course the drunko son probably wasted somewhere, but that hurt.
It's like hearing a toilet flush.
I don't know if you said hearing a toilet flush or being in a toilet flush, but it's both, my friend.
That's a toilet flush right to the gut.
So, Cole, you're a father, is this correct?
That's right.
And a father of how many?
One.
Well, what if I told you there was two? And then what if I said to you, out of the two, you had to choose? Could you?
No. Not for a second. No, I'd rather die than decide.
Yeah.
Because remember, everyone, with every council of dads comes a council of kids.
Well, I guess it'd be my real son that I do have and not the other one that you're making up.
And then we kind of float upwards for this next scene to the roof of the hospital, which these are notoriously easy to get on top of, where Theo and Jules, who we will remember from the Dead Parents Society, they're up top and they're just kind of laying on the roof. They've got a lot to think about. Theo's sister is going under the knife. Jules revealed in the last episode about how her mother had died, and they are trying to support each other. It's in this scene that Jules relates a little bit of information about herself and how when she was young, her mother killed herself in her playroom. And Jules, she found that kind of weirded her out about being in that room after that. And she had a tough time hanging out in there until she started taking guitar lessons.
Well, my mom would really love you. I really love you.
I really love you too. I don't know what I'd do if you weren't here.
The bottom line is this. There's a lot of firsts that happen in life, so you're going to need a lot of rooms to accommodate that.
Yes.
First time you see your mom kill herself, that's one room, okay? First time you say I love you, that's another room. And in this case, first real love kiss.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It was really cool.
And it's what we've said before about this show, how sometimes, you might think something like that is like jarring or inauthentic, or, it doesn't feel like that would happen in that situation. Council of Dads finds a way to make you believe it and make you buy into it.
And I will say, too, when the room is a roof, the ceiling is the sky. But you have to be careful on roofs.
We're back over after this with Lully talking with the family that had briefly adopted her when she was a baby. It's revealed as they're talking that the mother of the family, who initially it seemed like she refused to meet with her because it was just too painful, has actually been hiding around the corner texting the father. I think his name is Will. She was too scared to come out and face Lully, her brief daughter.
Regina, for heaven's sake, honey, come on out. Sweetheart.
But she does. She comes out, and it's again one of these scenes where there's so many different emotions happening because she sees Lully and she's, I miss you, and I see that you're leading you have this rich life of your own now. But she looks at Anthony and says, "You owe us an apology," which is a bit of a shock. We wonder, how does Anthony know these people? It's revealed Anthony had stood up for Scott when they went to court to get Lully back, and Anthony had lied and said that Scott was sober at the time and would have been a good dad, which we know was not the case.
I'm sorry. But no, I can never make that right.
You just did.
So now we're back to the rope swing, which we remember from the very first episode. This time it's a little tainted because I believe it's still part of a fever dream that Charlotte is having from the drugs that she's taking. Yeah. But even still, obviously bringing up a lot of feelings. She's there with Scott, and she's reticent to jump on the rope swing. Scott does manage enough motivation for Charlotte, and he tells her, take the leap.
Wear the
bikini.
Don't hold back.
Don't hold back. And then Charlotte swings. She swings out. And I think that is the exact moment, the moment when she's swinging. I think that's the exact moment in time that her heart is fixed medically.
People use those paddles. You see that on TV.
Clear.
Clear. Well, it was clear to her that she could jumpstart it. And I'll tell you what, she took the leap in fantasy, and where did it land her? Reality, at the waterfront.
There we are.
We're on the dock. We're saying our goodbyes, one by one, in a public, private way.
They have Scott's ashes there in the urn, and they kind of take turns shoveling and dumping his ashes into the river because he told Charlotte in her coma, hallucinations, whatever they were, that he missed being down there by the water. That was his favorite place. And we never had time to learn that earlier in the show, but we learn it now, that it's an important character detail about him. And Charlotte has some news of her own for the family.
I want you all to know who I am. I'm a Perry. I love the water. I'm Chinese. I'm a girl. The weird heart. I'm also a person who, if I ever fall in love, it will be with a girl.
You're broken down and
Gentlemen, might I interject here?
Absolutely.
You know, it's tough being a woman. It's tough being a girl. I've spoken on this. I've touched on this. We know this from Ready or Not as well. But the only thing harder than being a girl is being a girl that thinks she's different. And what am I getting at here? Well, I'm getting at what Charlotte's been trying to get at her entire life. What that self-induced coma basically was about this entire time.
Yeah.
Charlotte is no longer in to being the Charlotte she was, because she wants to come out as the Charlotte she is. And when that Charlotte does get out, you better believe she's going to have another woman's hand in hers. She's a lesbian.
In that moment, I could feel it. I felt like I was standing there on the dock with the family, because we've come so far with them in these 6 episodes. I was there with them. As she was saying her speech, she says, I am a Perry. I am a Perry in that moment. I was Chinese in that moment. I am a girl with a weird heart, as she said. If I fall in love with someone, it would be with a girl, as she said. I just felt part of the moment with the family. It was powerful.
I mean, it made me question, should I get in on this? You know, in regard, she seems happy with her coming out, and I came out as completely impressed with the strength of this girl. I really did.
It's brave of you to admit that.
Thank you. Absolutely. And brave of you to admit that to a woman.
Cole, you're being brave over there.
Always. But of course, my fight is very different.
We kind of end out on the episode with Robin being the final member of the family to dump some of Scott's ashes into the river where they wash away.
I am not going to say goodbye to you because you are not gone. You are in the kids, and you are in the council, and you're in my heart.
My heart. Which brings us back to the theme of the show, the heart. The heart is a strong muscle, as she says. The heart is something that can be weird, as Charlotte characterizes it. It can be weakened. It can be strengthened. It can be fixed.
It can be red.
Yeah, I think there's red and there's like a little bit of purple on it. I know I've saw a picture of a heart one time. Alana, what does a heart look like?
Okay, it's a couple of tubes.
Yeah.
Mixed into the belief. Okay, the belief.
Yeah.
That you have a center in you in which all good can come from, in which all bad can struggle with, in which all doubts can be filtered through. And let me tell you...
Oh, we ran out of time with our guest, Alana Johnston, but thanks so much, Alana, for joining us this episode. You can find her on Instagram, the only Alana Johnston, Twitter, Alana_Johnston. Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you right back here on Council of Dads.